Marie, and also stars Natalya, a number of WWE Divas helping out with that series, and we tweeted the entire episode for you as part of Cheap Shots with Jonathan Clark. For those of you who didn't get a chance to see the show, it was one of the highest rated premieres on the E! Network in the history of the E! Network, and WWE have got to be extremely proud of that. You can go to WWEDivas.com and the official website of the E! Network for program summaries, reviews, and up-and-coming editions of that reality series. One of the most popular things WWE have done in years. So we expect a huge challenge for AJ to either happen from the success of Total Divas or what's going on in the Divas division on both Raw and SmackDown, as a number of Divas are trying to lay claim to having an opportunity at AJ's Divas Championship. You know, for the better part of the last 2.5 years, I've always made a consistent habit of talking about AJ's character in the WWE, how unpredictable it might be on certain times, how far she's gotten over the last 2.5 years, because I am really impressed with the success of AJ, no matter if she's a fan favorite or a heel, which is something that you could see coming for AJ for a couple of months. You know, ever before she turned on John Cena, aligned herself with Dolph Ziggler, you could see this heel turn happening for AJ. Now, there are rumors of some Divas returning over the next couple of months by September or October who were fan favorites prior to them leaving the WWE and being handed their releases, and one of those big rumors is that Kelly Kelly will be coming back, only this time she'll be distributed as a heel. And if that happens, I'm really looking forward to finding out what WWE do with her character, because I was waiting for a heel turn from her ever since she lost the Divas Championship back in October of 2011 to Beth Phoenix. We didn't get it. Kelly Kelly kind of took some time off. She made the occasional appearance for WWE, and I'm really looking forward to seeing her back, this time as a heel, where she'll have some of the most successful careers, some of the most successful months of her career, because we really didn't get enough to see of Kelly Kelly in the way of distribution. Now, as a heel character, when she first appeared in ECW, she wasn't doing enough talking on the microphone. She was kind of just there to show herself off. She wasn't really involved in a consistent storyline, but now that she's become very experienced when it comes to athletic ability and doing things inside of a 20 by 20 foot ring, I'll be really looking forward to finding out what she can do as a heel character and as a full-time competitor and a potential up-and-coming challenger for AJ's Divas Championship. There's something about AJ versus Kelly Kelly, although they might have only teamed together on one occasion in their histories of their careers. There's just something about AJ versus Kelly Kelly for the Divas Championship which really goes together, and I think that's something the Divas division really needs, the hiring of these experienced Divas who have been there for a number of years. And that brings me back to why the Bella Twins were rehired by the WWE. Yes, they were brought back for Total Divas to ensure the success of the first season of that reality show, but the Bella Twins also brought back with them a lot of unpredictability, and this is kind of like how AJ is exemplifying that every week on Raw and SmackDown, either as a valet or an in-ring competitor as your Divas champion at the top of that division. And they're also bringing back a tremendous amount of experience they can offer to the Divas division, which is always a good thing with how much criticism the Divas division has received in recent years. Ever since the implementation of the Divas Championship, the Divas division has received a lot of criticism. They were criticizing the title, they were comparing it to the Women's Championship. They were thinking, okay, this is the championship that's going to replace a championship that has so much history, been held by everyone from the Fabulous Moolah to Alundra Blaze in the mid-1990s, and now they're having a championship replace it that is in the shape of a butterfly. Your first Divas champion in a match with Michelle McCool, and Maurice was determined to be Michelle McCool. You couldn't give the championship to a better pure athlete than Michelle McCool. Following Michelle McCool's reign, then Maurice comes in, becomes the second ever Divas champion, and she's just as impressive. So you can criticize the Divas division all you want, but the thing about the Divas division is it did see its fair share of great moments, and that Divas championship ever since 2007, 2008 has seen an equal number of adversarial moments ever since its implementation in the WWE. Maybe not as many as the Women's Championship, but you can't immediately jump to conclusions with the Divas Championship because it still has its best years to be seen. It's been held by everyone from Michelle McCool to Maurice to Kelly Kelly to Eve Torres, and multiple times for some Divas like Eve Torres. Eve Torres has won the Divas Championship a number of times, and you cannot be more proud of how far the Divas division has gone, and it's because of contributions of wrestlers like AJ who are contributing week after week to the Divas division. That's not mentioning what they're doing on tours of both Raw and SmackDown, as the Divas Championship is always defended either on Raw or SmackDown, and more so on Raw if it's ever defended. And I really wish they would change it up. Even though it's being defended on SmackDown, it could be being defended more on SmackDown than it is, and I think that's really taking away from a lot of credibility the SmackDown Divas division can be offering to the division. I mean, you take a look at Natalya and how impressive Natalya was on both Raw and SmackDown. Why isn't Natalya still considered a number one contender for the Divas Championship? And in time she may be, considered a top contender for the Divas Championship, but I just think that Natalya's abilities is being overshadowed by some diva that WWE believe they'll have a more prominent future out of. Maybe they think they'll get a more prominent future out of someone like Maxine, and that's not necessarily the case. What it also goes back to me for is the fact that we saw so many releases around the same time for the Divas Division. Melina and Maurice, who were two of the best talents that you had in the Divas Division, and with Karma having so much hype, coming in after her run in TNA as the TNA Knockouts Champion as Awesome Kong and Amazing Kong on the Independents. For years, WWE hype her up, they have her decimate the entire Divas Division, then she just disappears after announcing her pregnancy and going public with that. I appreciate the fact that Karma went public with her pregnancy on WWE television, but the thing that upset me was she said she was coming back to the WWE and we never saw her after. A year went by, she alluded to the fact she was going away for a year. She was hoping the Bella Twins were going to be back when she made her return to the WWE to get some payback on what they had done to her from crucifying her by making fun of her pregnancy and making fun of the fact that she had decimated the entire Divas Division. Sure, she would start losing matches when she returned, but it really disappointed me because she was hyping up a return. We never did get it. All we heard about Karma was that she had been given her release from the WWE, and I really think that was because of a point of confusion with her character. Not to say they haven't reached a point of confusion with characters like AJ, because they have in the past. It's just they've been able to get themselves out of those precarious positions when it came to the uncertainty of their characters and the utilization of them. I mean, AJ, as a Raw general manager, yes, she was fun to watch as a Raw general manager. It's just she wasn't as unpredictable as she is as a wrestler. She has this switch that can be flipped at any given moment. She has that spunk about her, kind of like Christy Hemme did in 2004, 2005, winning the first ever Diva Search, and she really puts me in mind of a older school type of diva like Christy Hemme. She has that feel about her, and that's the first diva that came to mind when I first got a glimpse of AJ. I said, this diva has what it takes. She has the total package, and she's going to get somewhere in the professional wrestling business. And this is not coming from someone who just is a huge fan of the Divas Division. This is coming from someone who has followed the progression of the Divas Division for a number of years. You know, I've been a fan of women's wrestling long before the Divas Division was ever introduced in the WWE, and that title ever became a part of the titles that you were eligible to compete for in the WWE. For me, watching women's wrestling goes back as far as the late 1980s and early 1990s, when you had superstars like Leilani Kai, Heidi Morgan, Alundra Blaze, the Fabulous Moolah, Mae Young. I mean, women's wrestling goes back quite a while for me, and to compare women's wrestling to today to what it was probably about 15-20 years ago, it's a huge difference. I will admit that, but I mean, women's wrestling is only getting better as time goes by. And when you watch Raw and SmackDown and publicly admit on your radio shows, for your written columns, that women's wrestling is the best thing that's going for WWE, for either brand right now, I mean, that goes to show just how uncreative some of the storylines are in 2013 for the WWE, when you're wondering who's going to hold on to the Divas Championship the longest, who's going to be able to take that title away from someone like AJ, how long is her reign going to last? I mean, you're asking yourself so many questions about the Divas Division, more so than you are Curtis Axel as your Intercontinental Champion. That should tell you something right there. At least the Divas Division is getting over with interest, but yes, it's taking away from how creative some of the other storylines in the WWE could be. I will never deny that, and I will also never deny on this radio show as a public forum that I have never been a fan of the Divas Division. I have always been a fan of the Divas Division, because if I were to come on here and say that I've never been a fan of the Divas Division, I would be telling you a fucking lie, when I've always been a fan of the Divas Division and women's wrestling from either organization. It could have been ECW, for Christ's sake. I was always a fan of women's wrestling. All you have to do is go through the YouTube One Channel archives of ECW Entertainment at Jonathan Clark 22. You will find a lot of video posts. There's a lot of consistency when it comes to talking about women's wrestling, either in TNA and the WWE. If I'm not talking about it in TNA or the WWE, I'm talking about what's going on with Daisy Hayes in Ring of Honor, or Angel Lacey rather, in Ring of Honor. I'm always talking about women's wrestling in some way, and I'm always going to be talking about women's wrestling, because women's wrestling is always going to establish some bit of consistency in professional wrestling, and that's something that it needs to do. It has to be consistent, and we need to see more than just 5-minute matches of women. We need to see matches with women that are good enough to be the main event, kind of like how Trish Stratus versus Lita was the main event in Florida in 2004, which was a video I recently threw up in our videos forum for our imagery gallery on our website, because it was just a great match, and it put into perspective just how far the women's division can come. I wish we had more matches to talk about like that were good enough to be the main event. I mean, AJ versus Kayden, there are a couple of matches they've had on pay-per-view. The good thing about their matches for the championship is the matches aren't taking place on television. It's a rarity now you see a Divas Championship match on Raw or SmackDown. You see a Divas title match more than you do any title in the WWE, but it's a rarity now. And the good thing about Divas Championship matches are they're being distributed on pay-per-view at least once a month. At SummerSlam we'll get one, at the Night of Champions pay-per-view we'll obviously have one, and I'm hoping that AJ is still your Divas Champion by Night of Champions because she is one of the most diligent competitors I've ever had the opportunity to witness when it comes to women's wrestling in the WWE and professional wrestling in general. So I'm hoping that AJ holds on to that title for an additional few months. But when you're asking yourself more questions about the Divas division than you are any other division in the WWE, that should tell you something right there. Not as a radio show host or columnist, but as a wrestling fan. For the past number of months, I've been asking myself more than one question about the Divas division and the status of it. So tell me what you think of AJ and her recent progression in the WWE, how long and how diligent she's been the Divas Champion for. You can get in on the conversation on Facebook at facebook.com/HW Entertainment, on Twitter at Jonathan Clark 1 with a creative hashtag, and where this video is featured on youtube.com/Jonathan Clark 22. Thank you to everyone who was out to that wedding reception the other night that I had the chance to help DJ. It was fun, and for those of you who like this radio show, if you're listening to it for the first time, you can subscribe to us on YouTube and let us know what you think by leaving us some comments. youtube.com/Jonathan Clark 22. Almost 15 years next year in 2014. I've got some music lined up for you on the way next. Seether featuring Amy Lee and Broken.
When something takes place in the world of professional wrestling, you know where to go. WrestleZone.com. WrestleZone.com. Covering all the latest breaking news daily. Interactive forums where you can chat with thousands of other wrestling fans. Exclusive editorials and audio features by some of today's top wrestling superstars. Exclusive video content, weekly polls, live play-by-play coverage of every WWE and TNA pay-per-view. And now, featuring WrestleZone Radio, live with news, in-depth discussions, debates, and interviews with wrestling's top stars, past,